Well, hey everyone, Coach Gary Micheloni here. Good to be with you, and welcome to today's webinar. First thing, of course, I need to give thanks to the good folks at MCAA, Tim O'Toole, my buddy over there, for setting up this session today. I owe an awful lot to the Mason Contractors Association of America. I'm just glad to be affiliated with them. Likewise, I'm really appreciative of the good folks at Masonry Magazine, and particularly my editor for a number of years now, Jennifer Morrell. She has just been a huge amount of help to me in that space there, and I can't thank her enough. Really can't. Today's session, and actually this whole series of webinars that MCAA has been presenting, has been brought to you by a number of sponsors. And these are all businesses that you know and like and trust, and more importantly, you use. And we know that you appreciate them, and boy, we do as well. So want to just encourage your continued patronage of them, and thank them for their partnership with us. So now let's get on with today's message. And maybe the way to start off is, who is this Coach Gary guy, and why listen to me? Just in case you don't know who it is that I am, just real briefly, I'll tell you this. I've been writing for Masonry Magazine now for quite some time. This is actually my 10th year of writing the full contact PM column for them. So over the years, I've got a couple of million plus columns in print, and the column is basically on project management stuff and project leadership. But you know, it's not that I'm just a writer. I'm going to tell you, I'm a lot like you. My background is similar to yours. A lot of you guys and gals. My background includes being a business owner and an estimator and a project manager. I've been a superintendent and a laborer and the equipment operator and the payroll maker. So we're the same, you and I. So what I hope to be sharing with you today is some real world experience, some things that you can put together and implement into your business right away. I should say also my favorite title is husband and dad. Dad is so cool. Anyway, and that's probably the same with you guys too. It's a great partnership that we have here, and the ability to be able to share information and get feedback from you folks is terrific. So anyway, let's get on with this. So what you're going to get here today is I'm calling them 2 turbocharged big ideas, things that you can put to work. I'm also going to show you a couple of examples to prove that a big idea can work, and we should not be afraid of trying big ideas. And then to help you implement these ideas I'm going to share with you, I've got a couple of gifts for you, and I'm going to try to make all this stuff happen at full contact and full speed. And I should say also, back to the idea about the 2 gifts, I've got some real valuable things to give to you. I will give you that information at the end of this webinar, so don't leave, because if you leave, you won't get it. So stay with me, and I just promise you that it's going to be worth the getting. Okay? So here we go. So the reason for these for appreciating what you have is I want to begin here. Actually, I want to talk about 2 amazing events in U.S. history, big ideas that were a big part of U.S. history. And these are things that we're celebrating this actually this summer, come to think of it. And so you're going to be familiar with both of these, but I want to give you a little bit of background on this, get you to appreciate them even more. And both of these things are there to encourage you. You know, in tough times, and I would argue that we are still in tough times, but in tough times, it's important to remember your heritage. How people prior to you got through equally tough times or worse times. So, and we're going to talk about big ideas with I'll say a slim chance for success, how these things got implemented and changed the course of U.S. history and the way you live your life today. So let's get on with the first big idea here. Again, it's all to encourage you. So the first big idea I want to bring to your mind the D-Day landing in June of 1944. Now, you will recall just probably a month or so ago, we celebrated this across the country. People talking about D-Day. There was a lot of discussion about it, and you know, so we all have this appreciation, this knowledge that D-Day occurred. Maybe we don't know what it was, that what all was involved in it. And I want to give you a little bit of a history lesson on this. I think it's very, very important. So let's take a peek at this, huh? So first off, the good question is, why even have a D-Day? You know, what was that all about? This big invasion thing. Well, here's the deal. World War II was not going well. Matter of fact, we were losing. The Allied forces were losing. So we needed a new strategy because what we were doing it wasn't working. We needed, in other words, a big idea. And big idea it's our theme for today. But we needed a big idea to change the playing field because we needed to win. There was World War II was a battle for ideas and ideologies, and it was freedom versus not being free. So there was an awful lot at stake here. So let's take a look at how the Allied forces, the good guys, came up with a new idea. So General Eisenhower and his staff of other generals, they met and they came up with a plan. They needed a plan, right? You need a big idea. So they did come up with one. They did. So what did they come up with? Now here is their plan. Okay? Remember now, there were desperate times. We were losing, so they had to come up with a plan. And we trusted these guys to come up with a plan. So what's the plan? Here it is. So they decided that what we needed to do was to have an amphibious landing. And this amphibious landing should be of a huge Allied force on a tiny little beach. And oh yeah, by the way, those beaches were protected by 58 German divisions. I think some of the troops might have been saying something like, thanks, boss. So that's the plan. Very ambitious plan. As I mentioned early on, its chances for success were very slim. And you know what, in this case, even if everything worked, chances were very slim. So as the day came for the invasion, General Eisenhower addressed his troops, and he let them know how important this thing was. And basically his letter to his troops, it was just from the heart, and he said that you know, the hopes and prayers of freedom-loving people all around the world go marching with you. And he told them how thoroughly convinced he was that they would persevere, and that even though the enemy was tough and battle-hardened, that our guys and gals were better than that, and they would win, and that we had to win, and that we would accept nothing less than full victory. So this is what General Eisenhower sent out to his troops. At the same time he wrote that, very few people realize this. He drafted a statement, and it's kind of hard to read here, but what he said in his statement was, he drafted this realizing that there was a good chance that the mission was going to fail. And so he had this statement prepared. And actually, you see in the bottom there, it says July 5th. It was actually written June 5th. He was kind of distracted, and he wrote down the wrong month there. But he drafted this on June 5th, 1944, and he let the world know that his troops did everything they possibly could, everything they were asked for, but that the invasion failed, and that the fault for the failure of the mission was his alone. And it's great, isn't it, to have a leader who takes responsibility. Win, lose, or draw. Take responsibility for your actions. I really admire that. A day or two before the invasion, Ike was out there with his troops. These guys are getting ready now to begin this invasion, probably a day or two after this picture was taken. But he was out there with them, encouraging them, letting them know that he believed in him. So it was a leader gets with his troops. And they did this just before, as I mentioned, a day or two before those guys climbed into these landing crafts. And you can see them there, huddled in the bottom of this craft. You can see out in the distance the Normandy coast. And this started about 6:30 in the morning on June 6th. But imagine being one of these guys in that landing craft, facing what is ahead. So Ike and the rest of the generals had quite an undertaking. So to give you an appreciation for the magnitude of this enterprise, look at, there's these 11 countries that were involved in this. You think you have language issues on the job site? look at what Ike and the rest of the generals had to do with. So when you anticipate a big undertaking like this, you have to think big, and bringing in 11 countries, that's thinking big, and you have to visualize this stuff happening, and you have to visualize yourself winning. And beyond the 11 countries, check this out. The Allied forces landed 156,000 troops on the beaches there at Normandy. 156,000. Of that, the U.S. had 73,000. The United Kingdom, 61,700 something. And then Canada had 21,400. That's Canada. It's not California. California, I assure you, did not send 21,000 troops to invade Normandy. That's Canada. But this is the bulk of the component of what made up that landing there at Normandy. The U.S. put troops on 2 different beaches. You can see there, 23,000 on Utah, 34 on Omaha Beach, and then 15,500 airborne. We'll come back to the airborne in just a moment. The Brits and the Canadians, you can see the numbers there, 83,000 landed. They landed their guys on 3 different beaches, plus the British had some airborne troops as well. This is what that whole landing zone thing looked like. Those are the 5 beaches. You can see on either side there's the drop zones for the airborne, and the blue is the blue is the water, and so you're oriented there. But this is how it was drawn up. This is how it went. Here's something that's I think really interesting. So about 6-7 hours before the invasion, there was the U.S., Brits, and Canada launched 24,000 paratroopers and gliders, and the idea was to get them into the areas nearby where the Allied troops were going to come in ashore. So what happens is at about midnight, that's when these 24,000 paratroopers and glider troops launched. So it was dark, and it wasn't easy, and it took a lot of courage, and they did that. This is what an airborne drop looks like. The one for the D-Day landing didn't look quite like this because you wouldn't have been able to see it because it was dark out. All right, but you got planes everywhere, parachutes more than everywhere, and again, it was nighttime, but it kind of did look like that. To make all this stuff happen, had 11,500 aircraft, and you can see the number of sorties that were flown. There were some casualties, but that was the Air Force. That was the Air Force operation. The airborne itself had 2,395 aircraft, probably about 10 men per plane. There was also, this I found fascinating, there was 867 combat gliders. These, we use the term loosely. The troops that flew in these gliders, these were tow planes. The gliders were towed behind planes. You'll see a picture in a minute. The troops referred to them as flying coffins, tow targets, that sort of thing. They were engineless, they were unarmed, and none of the guys in the gliders had parachutes, not even the pilots. All right, and the gliders were designed for one landing only. And you can see there's a tow plane, and then there's a glider behind it. Look at the running gear on that glider. It's not really, that's going to be landing in the brush, and you can see that it's probably not good for more than one landing. The Navy heavily involved, almost 7,000 vessels there, a number of them combat ships, and then there are these smaller, the landing ships. So there were thousands of these amphibious landing ships that were hitting the beaches, and then there's some other support craft. But this is the size of the Navy. The amount of people assigned to the Navy was, look at this, almost 200,000 people assigned to the Navy portion of this. Almost 53,000 that were U.S. and 112,000 Brits, and then about 5,000 of the others to make the naval operation work. Can you say wow? That's a wow. Oh my. D-Day was so big. You know, the old question is, well, how big was it? So D-Day was so big that D-Day took 6 days. That's right. So totals 326,000 plus troops involved in this thing, counting the troops on the ground and then the Navy and in the air. Some 54,000 vehicles, and look at all these. Look at all the supplies that were landed on the beaches. You know, of those 326,000. most of them were kids. There were some 16-year-old kids who lied to get in and serve, and probably they went up to age 22 or so. The vast majority of those, and and older than that as well. But the vast majority were young. So get that picture in your mind. This many people and youngsters that pulled this off. You guys, this is how the war, World War II, was won. And this is how Europe was saved. It's that big of a deal. So as you contemplate this, you think about things like, you look at the guys getting out of this landing craft, and you can see the beach way up ahead there. Could you do this? And I think even more than that, the question for you is, these days, would you do this? I don't think I could these days. I appreciate what they did. But you know what? As big a deal as D-Day was, there's another important part of it. So that whole effort that I just talked about here for D-Day, it was linked to another big idea. And that was winning at a place called Pointe du Hoc. So in order for D-Day to succeed, we had to win at this place called Pointe du Hoc. And I just got to tell you about Pointe du Hoc. You won't believe this. You absolutely won't believe this. But you need to see it. Because seeing, in this case, seeing is believing. So what is Pointe du Hoc? Here's an aerial view of it, but you can see the point there. That flat area up top, that's where all the gun emplacements were. You see the narrow little beach in front of those cliffs. That's where everybody came ashore. There were, as I mentioned, gun emplacements up there. The important thing was that these gun emplacements had to be taken out before the rest of the amphibious troops came ashore. Otherwise, they were going to get slaughtered out there. And so this was a huge, huge objective. Those cliffs are 100 feet high. There's another look at it here. Could you imagine being in a landing craft and you see that? That's where we're going, is up top, boys. Let's go. And look at it this way. That beach was pretty narrow. It might run, depending on where the tide was at any given moment, 15 to 20 feet wide is all. And you see the 100-foot high cliffs and the guns up there pointing down at the guys trying to get up them. So how did this all happen? Well, the U.S. Army Rangers made it happen. We had a force of about 235 men, all volunteers, all volunteers. Of the 235, over half were killed in the attempt. About a little over 100, though, actually succeeded. They climbed these cliffs, even with German rifles and guns pointing down at them. They scaled these cliffs. And so it's fair to say that the very liberation of Europe depended on 100 guys and a huge idea. And again, it's important to see this because this is your heritage. And anytime you think that you can't do something, that it's hopeless out there in business or in life or whatever it is, you need to remember these 100 guys, these 235 guys. And most of these guys were also, these are kids that did this, believed in a goal, when people visit Point du Hoc and they look at this, people are astonished. They don't see how it's possible to accomplish, for anybody to accomplish this, particularly with when you have gunfire coming at you. The commander of the ranger the ranger detail though says, we can do this. My guys can do this, and the guys believed him, and they did this. The importance of a big deal. So let's move on to one other big deal. We call it the second big idea. But another amazing thing in American history. I want to talk about July 20th, 1969. We just celebrated here, a few days back, the 45th year anniversary of the landing, man's first landing on the moon. July 20th, 1969. I was around then, so I remember it. But even if you weren't around, you need to remember this. So let's talk a little bit about this, because this was a huge idea. Here's a big part of the idea, and it was a challenge by President John F. Kennedy. So about a year or so into his presidency, a couple of years actually, he's at Rice Stadium in Texas, September 12th, 1962, and he gives a speech there. And I want to read this to you. It's not very long, but I want you to hear how it is that he challenged the U.S. And here's what he said. He says, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and the others too. But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that of the temperature of the sun. And to do all this, and do it right, and do it first, before this decade is out, then we must be bold." How's that for a challenge? And for the record, we did get there, and we got there in 7 years, in July of '69. That's JFK's legacy. And as you listen to the speech, you could hear him. It was almost likening that project to the building, to the construction of a building, with the different the materials that would have to go into the construction of that thing. But his goal was bold. It was big, as we've been saying, a big idea, and it was brave. But to get an appreciation for how bold and big and brave this was, we need to go a little bit further. But I will say this, that goal, that idea, it energized the country. Sometimes if you have too small of a goal, you will not end up motivating anyone. A big goal can do that. But while all this was going on, while Kennedy makes this wild proclamation, you got to realize the backstory here. Don't forget this, that, you know what, the U.S. was behind Russia in the space race. It was presumed by everybody that the Russians were going to be the first ones to get to the moon. And we forget that sometimes. We absolutely do. So don't lose sight of that. You know, the Russians the Russians may have laughed even when they heard Kennedy say that, because they figured that they were going to win. They were going to get there first. But during these days, the space program was not going well for the U.S. We would have failures, and the failures would always be publicized. We didn't hide those things, so the public was aware of these things, you know, and anything that the Russians did was pretty much done in secret, and if they had a failure, nobody knew about it. But everybody in the country, everybody in the world knew when we had a failure in our space program. And so, you know, it was a big thing, and it's important to not lose sight of that. So even despite all these, you know, the difficulties that we were having, that sort of a thing, the U.S. never backed off, even with all of the setbacks that happened along the way. Setbacks, a lot of setbacks, bad setbacks. Before we had Apollo 11, we had to have an Apollo 1. And that Apollo 1 crew was scheduled to launch on early 1967. February 21st, they were scheduled to launch. Unfortunately, about 3 weeks earlier, there was a fire aboard that capsule, and those three astronauts were in it. And Virgil, Gus Grissom, Edward H. White, and Roger B. Chaffee were all killed in the capsule. This was Apollo 1. See, America was heartbroken over this, as you can imagine. So a huge setback. But you know what? The U.S. did stay the course. And 32 months later, actually accomplished that goal, that big idea that JFK had set up for us. But 32 months, that's astonishing that happened. And in spite of those huge problems, man did land on the moon those 45 years ago. This is also your heritage. Do not lose sight of this. Your goal is not simply to survive. Your goal should be big. It should be to lead your market or your industry. Go big. Or somebody says go big or go home. But when you go setting goals, make sure your goal is big enough. And the landing on the moon certainly qualified as that. So 2 big ideas from history. I'm going to challenge you now. I say, what's yours? What's the goal that you have? What is something new that maybe you're thinking about doing to build your company? What is your big idea? We just saw some other big ideas. What's yours? Are you gonna stay the course? You know, even in crummy economic times? And are you willing to come up with big, brave, bold goals? I trust you will, and I believe you will, because you know you've got to have these big, brave, bold goals, and you have to do that, and you should do that because you need to be worthy of your heritage, and your heritage is considerable. So how about your big idea? Can I suggest a couple of possibilities for you? Well, let's take a look at this. So your big idea number one, this is my suggestion for you, but your big idea, it's this. Here's the concept. You know, increased revenue cures a host of issues. I think everybody would agree with that. If you had a little more money coming in, probably would cure some of the problems that you have, right? So the trick would be this, though. What about it if we could do this? If without increasing the amount of work that we bid, we could increase the revenue. Would that be a good idea? Does that sound interesting? So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So let's take a look at that. So here's the essence behind big idea number one, is start getting paid for all of your change order work. You know what, if we could just stop avoiding scope creep and start to get paid for it, here's what you'd find. Revenue would be up and cost would be down. So how do you do this? How do you do this? Well, you have to implement an effective change order policy. And if you have an effective change order policy, you'll be able to accomplish that. So if that sounds good, let me show you how you can, let's talk about how you could do that. So it could be done the hard way, or as I like to say, the Coach Gary way. It's your choice. But for me, I like quick and easy, and I like the least expensive. So I like things that way. So let me show you, or talk about the Coach Gary way. And I'm not going to sell you anything. I just want to show you something. So I got a book, Get Paid for Change. It's on Amazon.com. The print book is $49.95 and the ebook is $39.95. So here's my free gift to you. And I'll give you the details on this in a second. But for everybody who's attending this webinar, I'm going to give you a free copy of the ebook version of Get Paid for Change. And because that goes into in detail what you need to do or to consider in terms of implementing a new change order procedure and effective policy, and how you can get paid for a much larger percentage of your work. I don't have time to go into that today, but the book will do that for you, and I want you to have that. So so that's a gift from me to you. That's what the cover looks like. We just don't have the time, as I mentioned, to cover the strategies. And you can read this book easily in 2 nights. But the stuff in that book, it'll give you things that you can do now to make a difference in your business, where you can get the revenue up and the costs down, that sort of thing. Start getting paid for work that you're otherwise doing for free. So I mentioned a gift. Free? Yes, the book is absolutely free. And I mentioned I'll give you the details here in a second. But I'll give you those details when I give you, I have another gift for you as well, so I'm trying to say. So let's take a look at the second book, or the second gift that it's also for you. And this is your big idea number 2. And I'm going to challenge you to do this, to carry a new tool, some advanced marketing. And I refer to this as lead generation. But here's the thing. If you think of this like a 2-pronged approach, guys. So on the one hand, you're going to go ahead and you're going to increase your revenue dollars and cut your costs, because you're going to start getting paid for a greater portion of the work. So that will be impacting your bottom line. And then secondarily, let's take a look at some advanced marketing, some things that you can do to bring in new leads to where you could actually bid on new and additional work, new opportunities, that sort of thing. We're going to take a quick look at some of the stuff that's out there. And again, I've got a gift for you on that as well. So here we go. So one of the tools you need to carry with you is, you need to learn to love the internet. social media stuff. You know, I know a lot of us hate those things, but it's here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. So you need to embrace this stuff, and if you don't, you'll hurt your business if you don't do this. That's very important to realize that. So it's something that we've got to do. So what I'm going to give you is a gift that it's going to give you some generic ideas, some things that you can use, but they're advanced. All right, they're generic, but they're advanced, and you'll see that when you see the gift that I'm giving you. But these are marketing ideas for your business, things that will help to promote your business. And again, you'll get that along with the ebook version of Get Paid for a Change. So hang in there for a bit yet. So when we talk about, you know, advanced marketing and that sort of a thing, one of the issues people have is, well, I don't understand how to do it. It's too hard. I don't have the time, that kind of a thing. So I want you to realize part of that is that there are what we call done-for-you solutions. So just the fact that you don't know how to do something, that doesn't mean that your company can't do that. Think about a mason contractor. Typically in a job site, the mason contractor doesn't do all of the functions himself. The company doesn't do it itself. You often rely on outside vendors. Everything from porta potties to scaffolding typically gets handled by outside vendors. And so this is the same kind of a thing. And I'll just show you. There's ways to get this stuff done. All right. So don't dismiss this idea simply because you don't want to do it yourself. I want to encourage you also to learn about search terms, and I don't want to bore you with that, get too geeky on you, but your business needs to be found. Basically, if you're a mason contractor in a given area, that's how people need to find you when they search on Google for you, and we'll talk about that in this marketing piece I'm going to give you. We will cover it then apart from this webinar. So I want to also encourage you to own a website. You know, do I have to say this? Apparently I do, because some of you out there still don't have a website. It's amazing to me. But look at people these days expect that your business should have a website. They just do. And if you don't currently have one, then you need to get one. And I'll go into those details for you as well on this gift. It's not that difficult to do. They certainly are not expensive to do, and it can be done right and quickly and easily. You need to do that. These part of the things that you need to accomplish in order to make this thing work for you. So, as I mentioned before, that a lot of these things can be done, and they vary in price from free to inexpensive. You know, do it yourself or done for you. Virtually all this stuff can be done by yourself if you have the expertise to do it. But the important thing is this is not rocket science. You guys, nobody is shooting at you if you want to try to accomplish some of this advanced marketing. Think about this as a big idea. You can do this. And the bottom line is you need to do this. So here it is. I've got a bonus for you. This idea number 2. I've got a special video I'm going to send out to you, and it's called Real Marketing for Real Masons. And it'll explain really how marketing works in today's world. It'll give you if nothing else, it'll give you a good overview, so you can avoid some of the smoke and mirrors stuff that's out there, and so people don't go pulling the wool over your eyes, that sort of a thing. I'll just give you the straight scoop on this, and it'll help you to evaluate some things. Whatever you're going to do, but it'll help you it'll help you with that. But it's important for you to know that these what these different marketing tools and skills are, again, so nobody misleads you. And that video will give you a really good overview. So how do you get these things? As I like to say, easy as pie. The book and the video, easy as pie. And here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. So I want you to send an email to fullcontactteam@gmail.com. Okay, now write that down, fullcontactteam@gmail.com. You need that. Go ahead and write that down. That's worth at least $40 to you, so write that thing down. All right? Now, in the email that you send to me, in the subject line, go ahead and put in there Coach Gary book, so I'll know what it is that you're looking for. And so write that down. Just put in there Coach Gary book. You want to put that in there. But the main thing is it's fullcontactteam@gmail.com. And what I am going to ask you to do, here's the total cost on this thing. I want you to complete this sentence. What I like best about being an MCAA member is. Just tell me something that you like about being an MCAA member, something that's valuable to you. Why you have that membership? What's important to you? What have you learned there? Who did you meet there? What have they done for you? Anything like that. And you know, I could just send you this stuff for free, but if I didn't charge you something, you might not value it as much. So if you want this stuff and for free, you got to complete this sentence. If not, you can send me an email and I'll arrange to sell it to you. So I would suggest that you write down what it is you like about being an MCAA member. And I'm not going to judge you on your grammar or stuff, but what I would like to do though is, you know, I'll be passing that along to the good folks over at MCAA, and you know, understand that if they want to use some of that stuff as a testimonial, that they will be free to do that. So that's how you're going to get this stuff. So fullcontactteam@gmail.com. Tell me what you like best about being an MCAA member. So I think it's about time to close this baby up. I want to thank you for being a member of MCAA, and I want to encourage you to be active in the local chapters. I try to get to a couple of chapter meetings a year, and for me it's the San Diego chapter is the one that I try to go to occasionally. And I want to invite you also to join me each month on Masonry Magazine, the Full Contact PM column. Would love to have you check that out. Let me say this also: if you'd like additional help with project management or marketing, or you want me to speak for your organization or maybe do a workshop for you, that's all possible. You can email me also at fullcontactteam@gmail.com. Tell me what it is that you're looking to do, and we'll figure out something that works. Well, guys, that's it for me. I hope you got a lot out of this. I trust you will. I'm looking forward to your emails. So I think we're going to leave it at that right now. I'm going to say for the Mason Contractors Association of America, I'm Coach Gary. Thanks for dropping by, everybody.